Okay, so the NFL continues to be whacked this season, with the Rams losing to the Panthers and 7 other underdogs pulling off upsets in Week 13. Which, for the Eagles creates a little bit more hope than we had right after the Bears game. However, somehow Kevin Patullo survived the weekend, so like it or not, we've got to deal with it. And look, there's a couple other suggestions Philly needs to consider from Nick Foles. In this video, I'll go over the various options there, get into some surprising injury news for the Chargers ahead of Monday Night Football next week, and discuss the very unexpected decision from Jalen Hurts. So let's talk about that and everything else around the birds. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? Well, I did not expect Kevin Patullo to still be employed coming away from this weekend. Or at least I was hoping we would have gotten the announcement by now. Yet sadly, the only loss to the front office was the news that the Eagles executive Dave Caldwell is joining the University of Florida to be their general manager. Don't worry, if you're wondering how that affects the Birds front office, I think that Howie Roseman has proven by now that he can deal with the revolving door. He's had lots of guys in and out, but he'll be perfectly fine. Something we can't necessarily say about Nick Sirianni's offense, since a quick look at the offensive coordinators under Sirianni tells quite the story. For example, Shane Steichen and Kellen Moore experience an ability to add in new wrinkles and play to their players' strengths and 2 dominant seasons that reached the Super Bowl. However, then we have the inexperience of Brian Johnson and Kevin Patullo, resulting in predictable routes, schemes, and play calling that only gets worse as the season progresses. Sorry, don't mean to start out so negative, but that's why I'm shocked that we didn't have any kind of change over the weekend, as it appears KP escaped almost certain death.
He's still alive.
It is frustrating that we didn't get a change, and I totally understand the need to vent, being frustrated. That's why we have some of the live streams as well. But let me also 100% make this clear. What happened over the weekend is totally uncalled for, as a group of young Eagles fans allegedly threw rocks at Kevin Patullo's home. And again, come on, guys, we're frustrated about it, but that is completely lame, and you got to be better than that. For everyone else, though, I am curious, getting a long weekend, extra time to think about it, process, hopefully a little bit of the emotions dying down, but thinking about it, we're stuck with KP now. Like, that's what seems obvious. We're stuck with KP, so what other changes do you make? Let me know in the comments. Now, while you're doing that, I don't know what's more shocking, seeing the Carolina Panthers upset the LA Rams as 11-point underdogs, or the fact that in Week 13, there were 7 underdogs that won straight up this past weekend. Granted, seeing the Rams loss just makes the last 2 games for the Eagles hurt even worse. Because had it not been for choking away a 21-point lead versus Dallas and then following that up with an embarrassing showing on Black Friday, you realize Philly would have had a commanding lead over the NFC at 10-2. I know, it doesn't help to rehash things, but I can't help but think what just an average offense would do for this squad. Now, to be fair, Matthew Stafford played one of his worst games all year, and the NFL's best scoring defense in the Rams gave up 24 points to the Panthers. 7 points were off of pick 6, which got it to 31. Anyway, this is why the terrible showing from Vic Fangio's defense against the Bears doesn't have me panicking when it comes to the defense specifically. Because players have bad games, and this is the NFL where, any given Sunday. I mean, look, seeing the Panthers beat the Rams and all the other upsets certainly paints the picture for how extreme the parity is this season. I mean, I've talked about it in the past, but more than any other year, it doesn't feel like there's a clear favorite. Better way to put it, no team is without flaws. Also, now you look at the standings and see the Eagles are still just 1 game behind the Rams and Bears for that top seed. Which, okay, fine, they don't hold the tiebreaker over Chicago, but they do versus LA. Of course, the way things are right now, a number 1 seed for the Eagles seems pretty far-fetched.
I'd say more like 1 out of a million.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Mathematically, sure, anything's possible, but like I mentioned on the last video, I think I'm at the point now where I have to see it to believe it first. Sorry, other teams may have earned the benefit of the doubt, but not the Eagles. Also, for those who haven't been listening to the live streams as much or may have missed it, I said previously that Jalen Hurts played one of his worst games against the Bears. And I'll definitely call it out when QB1 doesn't play well, which I'll get into later in the video here. At the same time, I do find it a little ironic, like mostly Eagles brought up, that Matthew Stafford has a top 3 wide receiver duo and a top 5 play caller / scheme, and still had 3 turnovers and a couple missed throws in a game. Meanwhile, Jalen Hurts also has a top 3 wide receiver duo, but a bottom 1 play caller and scheme, yet people expect him to be perfect. Whatever, it's not like that line of thinking surprises me at this point. Although I'll tell you what does surprise me, you got the Bears leading the NFC and the Broncos and Patriots heading up the AFC. But again, going back to the no dominant teams theory, Denver has won 9 straight games and they've trailed at some point in every single one of them. FYI, that's a new NFL record. And maybe more impressively, Sean Payton's side has also won their last 4 games by a combined 10 points, and 8 of those 10 wins are by 1 score or less. So I will say, for the Broncos to barely survive a 3-9 team that didn't have its starting quarterback and best wide receiver was on a pitch count, kind of feeds right into the narrative that it really is anybody's year. Honestly, what Denver's doing is close, maybe not the same, but close to Kevin Patullo levels of playing with fire and somehow surviving. But amazingly, getting back to the Eagles, they still somehow have the 4th best odds to win the Super Bowl.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Okay, no, I'm not selling you on the idea of the Eagles being Super Bowl favorites because they have a whole lot to figure out and it is getting very late. But my eternal optimism won't ever let me quit on the Birds. Right now, it's really about avoiding the same kind of 2023 collapse. Because the parallels are eerily similar. Remember, the Eagles lost the number 1 seed in the NFC back in 2023, then got beat by Dallas, and then also traveled to the West Coast for a Monday Night Football game versus the Seahawks backup quarterback Drew Lock. Ironically enough, there's a chance that we're playing the Chargers backup quarterback in Trey Lance instead of Justin Herbert this week. That's right, in case you took the weekend off from the NFL action, Justin Herbert broke a bone in his hand and had surgery today, with head coach Jim Harbaugh admitting he's not sure if Herbert will miss any time. Although the quarterback ended up telling reporters he's treating Monday night's game as if he's playing, so personally I'd expect him to give it a go because he did actually play an entire half or maybe over a half after that injury happened against the Raiders. You're right though, it may not be up to him if the doctors say no. Yet the fact that it's on his non-throwing hand makes me think he'll be fine. Honestly, the more concerning aspect for the defense is shutting down the running game, especially after what the Bears did to Philly and seeing the Chargers rush for over 180 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns against the Raiders. And oh, not to mention that LA appears to be getting their best running back from injury this week.
Doesn't make me feel better at all.
As I said, I'm trusting Vic to figure things out. We've seen the defense have its moments, play a poor game, but they adjust. Vic Fangio has the ability to do that. We've seen it. The proof is there. Yes, the run defense needs to be much better. They're going to be tested, but he's earned the benefit of the doubt. So we go closer to this game. We'll see how it turns out. I keep you guys posted on injuries there, but the defense for me, I'm not concerned about. Not gonna lie, I'm struggling to be as optimistic though with KP sticking around at offensive coordinator and the only change being Sirianni getting more involved.
Nick Sirianni probably has to get a little bit more involved in the offense. The offensive line's got to play better. There's probably a combination of factors, but Nick Sirianni said they're not planning to do anything like that, D-Bud.
They're doing the exact opposite of what has worked in the past. Again, I hear you for those of you saying we've seen how replacing coordinators in the middle of the season goes and doubt a coordinator change would make a difference in the middle of this season. And while the percentages say that's potentially true, it's not like it hasn't ever worked before. Flashback for you, the Ravens fired their OC at 9-4 and ended up winning the Super Bowl in 2013. Heck, that's a better record than the Eagles have now, when head coach John Harbaugh fired Cam Cameron following a Week 14 loss to Washington, leading to then Jim Caldwell getting brought in as the new offensive coordinator. Now, like I say, eventually they won the championship, but the remainder of the regular season was still a little rocky, as the Ravens finished the season 1-2 under Caldwell before being able to implement the changes ahead of the playoffs and average well over 30 points per game. At the same time, Jim Caldwell was a seasoned play caller, so there's a bit of a difference there because if Philly makes the change, who are they going to? Like, even if they made Scott Loeffler the OC, it'd still be his first time calling plays in the NFL. Although I am with you that it can't be much worse, and Loeffler is my top pick internally. Now, for the record, the Bills also changed to Joe Brady a couple years ago in the middle of the season and went to the AFC Championship game. Or there was also Freddie Kitchens in Cleveland, who after Week 8 of the 2018 season, Kitchens was promoted to offensive coordinator. And by the way, Kitchens actually didn't have any prior play calling experience in the NFL before that move. And yet the Browns finished the season with a 5-3 record after a 2-5-1 start, helping Baker Mayfield finish as the runner-up for NFL Rookie of the Year. Of course, the aftermath for Kitchens wasn't as good as the very immediate change there, but you look at the Eagles, and like I say, any change at this point would probably be a good one. Yet if they aren't going to do that on a personnel front, shout out to Nick Foles because I'm completely on board with his creative solutions.
So when I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, a simple adjustment is put him up in the box and bring someone from the box down. And the quarterback should only be talking to the head coach and maybe his quarterback coach and the OC. That is it. He doesn't need to be talking to anyone else. There's too many talking heads. It can clutter the mind. This isn't a Jalen Hurts problem. This is a team problem. This is the Eagles' problem. You win as a team, you lose as a team. Right now, they are struggling as a team, but I do think the next step right now, I don't know if it'll fix the problem, but I do believe it's the next step. Put him up in the box where he's in a controlled environment. Maybe I know a lot of coaches love their Diet Cokes or their energy drinks. I know Vic Fangio has some Zen right there that he pops when he's calling his defensive plays. Put him in that environment. Maybe it'll, when I wake up in the morning, I'm reading the Bible and I have my journal and I don't have distractions. My brain and my spirit, everything comes out and I journal and I can see things more clearly. I can read the word of God more clearly. I can see it. But the second there's noises and distractions, dogs barking, I can't do that. And that's what Kevin Patullo has been dealing with on the sideline, is that he's not used to that. He's not used to all the boos, all the people coming up to him.
That's a lot for a guy who's in his first year, like being an offensive coordinator.
Listen,
it's a lot,
It's not a failure. It's just like, listen, we got to figure this out. We are 8-4. We are top the NFC East. We're a game and a half ahead of the Dallas Cowboys. We are controlling our own destiny. Let's take a breath. Another thing too is, and I love this, when they played against the Cowboys a few weeks ago, first half they did really well. Well, they probably are going off their first 15. If any fans have heard that what it is you have a scripted base downs thoughts, 15 plays that'll sort of take you through the first half, because then you have your third down section, your red zone section, and maybe whatever. And you have those ranked, but your first 15 are your first and second down thoughts. Well, what I love that Andy Reid used to do, Andy Reid throughout the week would be in his office playing the game in his head, watching film. How would he call each and every play? And he would have index cards, or he'd have a first 15 for every single quarter. And then he'd have, whether it's on a sheet of paper, an index card, and he'd have them in his pocket. Sometimes you got to take the emotion out of the game and what's going on and just pull out an index card from your prep during the week and be like, hey, let's get back to who we are, what our rhythm is, this play con. Let's redirect.
Okay, for the record, Kevin Patullo was already on the sidelines. You look and watch the Eagles mic'd up videos, the social media accounts, the post there. Remember from the Super Bowl, Sirianni, Patullo celebrating from the dagger call. So Patullo has been on the sidelines. It's not like he hasn't, been on the sidelines before and now he's just transitioning on that side. But change it up, do something different. I'm all for it. Because a more controlled environment that maybe helps him to see things from a bird's eye view hopefully can, keep him on task. Plus, the scripted plays for each quarter makes a ton of sense. Again, KP is probably not the long-term answers, but curious to hear what you guys think from Foles' assessment. By the way, also got a link down in the description if you want to check out the full video. It's something like 20 minutes, but it's well worth your time. The other area that comes into play, though, is something we learned over the weekend. So you know how we've been talking about using Jalen Hurts more in the running game? Well, it turns out that Jeff McClain and Jimmy Kimsky, two of the most notable Eagles beat reporters, have now reported that QB1 wanted to utilize less quarterback runs this season, primarily due to the fact that he suffered injuries while running the last couple seasons and wanted to cut down on it. Which I can't fully blame Jaelan, but it's also a problem because he's so dangerous when he's being a dual threat.
In respect to Jaelan, his rushing numbers are down. Is it related to the fact that he wanted to rush less this year?
We're always thinking about how to protect Jaelan and make sure that he is healthy for the long haul. Different plans have different reasons and of why you run different things. And like I said, we'll do everything we need to do to help this offense get rolling. Jalen's talented and running the football. He's talented and also holding the backside when he doesn't run the football. So a lot of different ways to do that. Always looking at everything and how we can improve.
The topic I don't agree with, though, is John making the assumption that right there, Jaelan being against the running plays, the running calls, is also why the Eagles have very little varied route options and good play calling sequencing, suggesting that the team needs and wants to open up the playbook, but Jaelan won't let them.
You actually believe that?
Seriously? You think that Jaelan wants a more boring, predictable offense that makes his job 10 times harder? Really? So you're saying QB1 is asking for these routes on third downs with nowhere to throw the ball and no immediate options in the passing game. Look, there's a reason the film analysts would also agree that even 2007 Tom Brady would struggle in this Sirianni offense. Plus, are we just forgetting about Jaelan publicly criticizing the Eagles offense for the lack of throws over the middle in 2023? Or again, even talking about finally being let out of his straitjacket after the NFC Championship game. Jaelan gets a large input on the offense. That no one's doubting that. No one's debating that. But let's not act like Jalen's asking for nowhere to go with the ball and really, really limited route options. Now, hear me out. Hurts does not get a free pass and overall played terribly awful against Chicago. Yet a Hall of Fame quarterback in Kurt Warner defending a couple of the plays that were made specifically due to the ineffectiveness of the play calling and tendencies should give you a little bit more perspective.
There's so many elements to this play that are more than just throw it to the open guy, right? Throw it to the open guy. Everybody's open on this play. Yeah, throw it to the open guy. Oh man, this is the touchdown. Man, Jalen Hurts is terrible. Whatever. This guy's running a double move. Jalen's told, if the choice is open, take the choice, then work back to your stump. There are so many things wrong with just saying, go back and throw it to the guy running down the middle of the field. You've got to see this. That, to me, holds no water right here because the elements are, hey, you're taking the choice. You've got a hot to the choice side. It's not just a hot to the other side. You've got a hot to the choice side. Everything here says you've got a great advantage to the choice. You've got a great hot to the choice. To me, it's just the hot is not defined. And this is NFL in 2025. Very seldom are hots defined. Having a pressure plan. It's what I talk about. Quarterbacks have a pressure plan. But scheme, have a pressure plan. Oh, they come over here? Here's our pressure plan. Oh, they come over here? Here's our pressure plan. We got a plan. Everybody knows it. This guy knows it. So this guy can be definitive and make positive plays against pressure. That, to me, is what wins and loses football games. And this was a losing play right here. And we can say it's a losing play by Jalen Hurts because he didn't put the ball in front of Devonta Smith. To me, this is a losing play scheme-wise because you didn't define what you wanted to do. You left too much indecision and too much guessing in a critical situation. And it's something that costs you.
Look, at the end of the day, Jalen will be judged based on the plays that he makes compared to the ones that he doesn't. But we're going on 13 weeks now, and this offense just doesn't make his life easier. However, being on a different page and miscommunicating with Devonta Smith and other wide receivers, I can appreciate QB1 always taking the high road and not throwing teammates under the bus.
When there's film sessions, everybody shows up. And when I check to a route, you do the right route, you know? Like, John and I just weren't on the same page. I checked to his in-breaker, and he ran an out-breaker. John is a true professional, so I'm sure he's sick about that.
Yeah, if we get to those vibes and that energy, then this thing is truly in shambles. Having watched more film, though, somebody check on Anthony DeBona because Grant Calcaterra played 12 snaps against the Bears in Week 13, where he was a run blocker on 10 of those 12 snaps. Meaning the worst blocker on the team was asked to block on 83% of his snaps. Of course, the O-line continues to be inexcusable as well. And maybe the best example from this play where you have Fred Johnson tackling Tyler Steen and both ending up on the ground, Cam Jurgens overrunning a linebacker, Landon Dickerson getting shed very easily, and Dallas Goedert losing almost instantly. Also, Philly Nick made a great point about the impact a good play caller has, since you look at Ben Johnson's call for the Bears that has Jalen Phillips guessing, Reed Blankenship totally playing for the bootleg to the flat, and taking out multiple defenders in the play. I don't know. Silver lining is the NFL is a copycat league, so maybe Kevin Patullo can steal some plays from Ben Johnson and utilize those over this mini-bye. Like, for example, when Chicago motioned the tight end across the formation only for him to turn into a wham block, aka that is the Bears finding rushing success with 6 blockers versus 7 Eagles in the box. I will say this, another bright spot to point out was A.J. Brown's usage. I already talked about Jaelan and A.J. celebrating a touchdown on the last video, but more importantly, look at the routes from A.J. on Black Friday. I mean, if nothing else, KP has got to replicate these in-breaking routes. 1, because they were successful, and 2, because no defense is expecting them. By the way, I know this might be more negative than usual on the show, but I'm trying to keep things in perspective here, at least from the Black Friday game. It was what it was. I'm trying to call it like I see it. The Eagles need to prove it to us. I do believe everything is still in front of them just from a record perspective, but we got to have some serious changes, some significant changes. Otherwise, it's going to be the same old thing every single week. I will say, we do have the Tuesday night hangout for some group therapy, so keep an eye for that side. And also, Hard Knocks airs incredibly soon, so I'm very curious to see how that one turns out. But let me know your thoughts. Drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe, make sure to stay tuned. I'll catch you on the next one. This has been the Philly Special.